Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Kathy Barnette Show. I'm so very grateful that you have tuned in for yet another week. This morning, I woke up. I tend to wake up very early anyway, but this morning I woke up especially early, between 3 and 3:30 this morning, and my heart was just heavy. Just thinking, and I know that I'm not alone. I know because I talk to a lot of people. That's part of my job, is just traveling across the nation and just speaking with people. And so I know that I'm not alone. There is this growing sense of unease that is forever present, that is just there. I feel as though there's an impending shoe that is about to drop. And I know I'm not alone. I know others feel this as well. And I just want to tell you, in case you need the affirmation, you are not alone. You are not crazy. I feel it as well, right? I feel that something has gone wrong with our country. I feel this increasing sense of unease. I feel as though a shoe is about to drop. And I'm consumed sometimes, a lot of times actually, on if I and my family are prepared for whatever that blow is going to be. I think about it. I know that others think about it. You're not alone. And yet, when you look at social media, where most of us get our news from, everyone just seems real happy. Everyone is either really happy, going about their life, taking these photos, putting it on Twitter, for example, and all we see is just a snapshot in time. All we see is that moment that it went lights, camera, action, everyone smile. We don't see the before, we don't see the after. And generally what we watch is people just living their best life. And is that real? You see others, going about the political sparring with one another as usual. It just feels as though people are oblivious to this feeling that I know a lot of us are feeling. And I think one of the ways I try to deal with this sense of, well, what's going on, is to increase my level of understanding, to figure out, what are some of the issues. Let's try to get as much information as possible. One of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Frederick Douglass, and he says, knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave, whether that is slave to my own fears, slave to my own anxieties, slave to just the unknown, right? Feeling paralyzed. The best way to overcome that, to the best of my ability, is to try to get as much information as possible about whatever the issue is that seems to be gripping me in this moment. And one of the many issues, trying to pick an issue is like trying to drink water from a fire hydrant these days. There's so much that has gone wrong with our country. But one of them that I've been going to bed with and waking up with, one of these issues that seems to just be pressing me, is watching how typically rational people are becoming unglued, are becoming irrational when it concerns Israel, Palestine, what's happening in the Middle East right now, what the proper response of Israel should be, this conflating, this false moral equivalence that people are putting together in comparing Hamas to Israel. That's just one of the many issues that I am feeling a sense that this is going to be huge, right? This is not a walk in the park. What we're watching right now unfold in the Middle East, it is not the same as what happened or is happening in Ukraine versus Russia. What is happening right now in the Middle East, this is huge. It has the makings of World War III. And if you're listening to some of our leaders on both sides of the aisle, whenever I use the word leaders, I almost want to do air quotes like leaders, because we know for the most part, these people are not leading. These people are just leading themselves to a bank and depositing more and more resources into their own ledger. But for the sake of a better word, for the lack of a better word, let's just use the word leader for right now. The leaders that we have in our country on both sides of the aisle seem very interested in marching us. I usually use the word sleepwalking us right into World War III. But I think these people are alert. I think they know exactly what it is they're doing, and maybe their vision is very short-sighted. Maybe they, in their arrogance, they think they can control the makings of this beast, this making of this Jekyll that they are putting together right now. I have no idea. But it leaves me as a mom, as a wife, as a daughter, as a sister, as someone who loves our country. Most of you know I spent 10 years in the U.S. military, Army Reserves for the most part, and I made a conscious decision that if I was called upon, that I would lay down my life. And so I took that oath very seriously. And although I'm not in the military today, I still love my country, and I am very unnerved by the direction that I find that we're heading in. And it gives me a lot of anxiety. So what do I do? One of the ways to help is, again, knowledge. Makes a man unfit to be a slave, even to their own anxieties, even to their own concerns. So let's talk about Israel. Let's just make sure that when you're building a house, you have to start with the foundation, right? And I believe intentionally, there's been a lot of muddying the waters from our quote unquote leaders here in America. You see me doing my little air quotes all the time. But I put out on Twitter the other day, I was reading some news pieces and I saw it's just been, I call it the whiplash strategy, right? One moment, the Biden administration says A, the next minute they shift and start saying X, right? One day is X, the next day is Y, then it goes to Z, and they just kind of go back and forth. You don't really know what is going on. I call it the whiplash strategy, but I think it's very intentional. So go with me with this timeline here. On October 7th, we have the very barbaric behavior attack of Hamas on citizens. We see them paragliding into a music festival. We see them doing all kind of heinous things, right? That was October 7th. On October 7th, right after that happened, the Biden administration deleted a tweet instructing Israel to stand down. They got a lot of backlash from that. So then they deleted the tweet. October 12th, you see U.S. Secretary of State Blinken standing before the American people and the world saying, we support Israel. That's October 12th. Then on November 4th, Blinken rejects calls for Israel to cease fire. And then later on in the day, on November 4th, you see Blinken coming right back and backtracking, saying, we believe Israel should do a humanitarian pause. So we're for Israel. We're not for Israel. Israel should stand down. No, we're in support of Israel. We're not going to tell Israel to cease fire. But now we're telling Israel to cease fire for humanitarian purposes. It's a lot of muddying the water. So in a time when we need clarity, not just in America, but apparently the world, the globe, everyone is rallying, have a rally cry over this. So at a time when we need greater clarity, greater understanding, what you see is a lot of muddying of the water among our leaders, right? Or at least that's the public face of things, right? Like we can only go, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So with that, let me bring some clarity to this. At least in my mind, let me walk you through how I'm bringing clarity in my own life of what is happening and where I stand for me and my house. Let me walk you through how I'm getting there. And with every home that you build, you start with the foundation. So let's just start with the foundation. And I'm going to categorize this with, I'm sure you guys have heard of the five W's, right? The who, the what, the why, the where. Let's just kind of walk through this. And let's just start talking about what is going on between Israel and the Palestinians, the Israelis, the Palestinians, what's happening in the Middle East right now. Let's start with the who. Who are the two sides here? Who are we talking about? Now, if you listen to most in the media, they will tell you this is a battle between the Israelis and the Palestinians. If this was just a battle between the Israelis and the Palestinians, then I believe we could come possibly to a ceasefire, to even maybe peace between the two, if this battle was just between the two. Unfortunately, I don't believe that this battle we're watching unfold in the Middle East is just between the Israelis and the Palestinians. But not only do I not believe that, but Yasser Arafat, you guys, if you're, I may be telling my age right now, but I was in college when Yasser Arafat went to Camp David with then President Bill Clinton and the Israeli Prime Minister. And the goal was to come to a peace agreement. And I remember reading about it, and all Yasser Arafat, who was at that time the Palestinian leader, the PLO is what they called themselves back then. He was a Palestinian president. I remember him saying a whole lot of no. Every time they will offer an agreement, an arrangement, he just said, nope, nope, nope. But then eventually he said, listen, I only represent the Palestinians. I do not represent the 1.5 billion Arab Muslims. Right there, he's telling us that this battle we see continuing from the time of President Clinton, even before then, and now to present day, is not a battle just between the Israelis and the Palestinians. It's not my opinion alone. It was Yasser Arafat's opinion as well. He was brought to Camp David for the express purpose of coming to a peace agreement. And he said towards the end of his time there, I only represent the Palestinians. I don't represent the 1.5 billion Arab Muslims. So this isn't just a battle between Palestinians and the Israelis. I believe this conflict is much bigger. And I believe that this conflict is meant to be a continuous thorn in the side of, you fill in the blank, a continuous thorn in the side of Israel, a continuous thorn in the side of America, democracy. You fill in the blank here. But it is certainly not about the Palestinian people. I'm sure most of you have seen where the president in Egypt, as well as the president of Jordan, have said they will not take even one of the Palestinian refugees. They will stay right there in Gaza as the Israeli bombs are coming in. So these people, the Palestinians' Arab cousins, will rather see 1 million plus Palestinians succumb to the bombs than to take even one of them. So this isn't about the people, the Palestinian people. It is about something much bigger than the Palestinian people. I believe that, I believe it's reasonable to insert that this is perhaps more about making sure Israel looks guilty, that the Palestinian people are a perpetual pebble in the shoe of Israel, never to leave them, always to be an issue. Now, what proof do I have? What proof can we look at that proves that this conflict is not just between the Israelis and the Palestinians? Well, one, I've already given you Yasser Arafat's own statement that he only represents the Palestinians. He was there to negotiate peace on behalf of the Palestinians. He cannot negotiate peace for the Palestinians because this issue is much bigger than just the Palestinians. It also includes the 1.5 billion Arab Muslims. So now imagine Israel having to not only negotiate peace, with the Palestinians and to hear what their concerns are and to come to some kind of agreement. But according to Yasser Arafat, Israel must also go to the Arab Muslims in Egypt and broker an agreement. Jordan, Syria, Iran, Yemen, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and wherever else, that it is up to Israel to now go and not just broker peace with the Palestinians over Gaza and the West Bank, but now they have to go and broker peace with every other Arab predominant nation. What are the odds that if you have those many cooks in the kitchen that you're going to come to an agreement? Can it ever be resolved when you're dealing with that many different interests and perspectives? Or are you set up to fail from the word go? I don't know. But here's the other proof. We can look to the wars as well, the various wars that have taken place, the previous war. So here we go. In 1917, we have World War I. Great Britain won. The Central Powers, which included Germany and the Ottoman Empire, lost. The Ottoman Empire would have been a part of that land where Israel find themselves today. Well, they lost. In 1917, the Great Britain endorses the Balfour Declaration. I'm sure many of you have heard about the Balfour Declaration. Right now it's not that long of a declaration. It essentially acknowledges that Israel has a right to have a home. 1948, at the end of World War II, the United Nations comes in, leaning upon the Balfour Declaration. They partition the land between Israel and Arabs. This is what happens. From that point forward, 1948 to today, immediately the UN partitions the land. 1948. Then 1948, Israel's have their War of Independence. And this War of Independence is not a war of independence between Israel and Palestine. So this isn't just a war between Palestine and Israel, because that's where the partition of the land took place between Israel and Palestine. But the War of 1948 is known as the Arab-Israeli War. There was 5 Arab nations that invaded Israel at that time. So I would kind of look to that as proof that this is not just about the Palestinian people and the Israeli people. But then you go on to the 6-Day War in 1967. Here, again, you had Egypt, Syria, and others in Jordan coming against Israel. Israel captures Golan Heights, the Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip, West Bank. In that particular battle, they give back some of the land, like the Sinai Peninsula. They give that back to Egypt, but then they keep some of the other lands, like the Golan Heights. But that was a 6-day war. That was not just between the Palestinian people and Israel. Then we go into 1963, Yom Kippur battle. That's between Israel and Syria. Then we have 1982. We have that's the Lebanon War. And then it continues to go on. And even today with Hamas, we know Hamas is backed by Iran. So again, not only can we look to Yasser Arafat, the former PLO president, representing the Palestinian people, to say that this war, if we're trying to figure out who is this battle between, who's even fighting this battle, right? It's pretty difficult to wage a war or to pick a side if you don't know who it is you're battling, or if you don't know who the two sides are. How do I pick a side? And I believe this is one of those many issues in our culture today where you will not find many people in the middle of the road. People are picking sides, whether you like it or not. And it's really difficult to pick a side if you don't even know who the battle is between. Some, like I said, most will say this is a battle between Palestinian and Israelis. I reject that because I know a little too much about history. And now I've explained a little bit more to you, and you can take it from here and do your own research, that this battle is much broader than what we are being told. I believe this battle is truly between Israel and many, not all, but many Arab Muslims. So that's the who in all of this. Let's move on to the what. What is this battle over? Is it just over land? I don't think so. When you hear people saying from the river to the sea, meaning from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, Palestinians will be free. And if that includes the eradication of all of Israel, that goes from Jordan River over by Jordan all the way out to the sea. They expect all of this land to be given back to the Palestinians. And when you ask, well, what happens to Israel? They look at you as though you're being Islamic phobic, and you're not. You're asking questions. All of a sudden, we're not allowed to ask questions without being some form of hate group. But it's not. It's a very legitimate question. What do you mean? From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. What happens to Israel in that scenario? And if you ask them what part of Israel belongs to Palestine, they will reluctantly say, I've seen it. I've seen the videos of people being very reluctant initially and then exploding with anger as they say all of Israel belongs to Palestine. So what happens to the Jewish people? What happened to Israel in that extent? So I don't believe that this is just a battle over land. I believe it's something much bigger and something even more sinister. But here's another what. What is the difference between Hamas and the Palestinian people? Because that is, if we're trying to build a foundation of how should I think about the things that are going on around me? There's a lot of things going on around us. But if we just focus in on what's happening with Israel, now you have to begin to ask yourself, well, what is the difference between Hamas and the Palestinian people? Does Hamas represent the Palestinian people? And there are a lot in the media who will tell us, no, Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. What is the difference then? Let's answer that question, and let's go to a little bit of what I've seen, because what we're having today is a lot of conflating. There's a lot of false equivalences being made. There are those who see Hamas as fighting for the liberation of the Palestinian people. I mean, I think this was one of the most, I would say alarming, but we've all lived through 2020 and Black Lives Matter riots. We've lived through the Antifa riots. We've lived through our own government weaponizing our legal system against her own people. We've seen the shutting down of businesses and schools and people not following science, people not following logic. Boys can now become girls, girls are boys. And if you say that can't happen somehow, again, you are labeled as something ugly and hateful and all of that, which of course is foolishness. But with this, on October 7th, if there was ever a clear line to be drawn in the sand that what Hamas was doing as they paraglided into a festival of civilians who were dancing and singing and having a great time, and then you begin to see this cloud of doom with the Hamas fighters paragliding in with their gun in their hand, firing shots, kidnapping people. We later find out about women were being raped. We saw people with no heads. Heads were detached from their bodies. Of course, in our culture, you can't say that Hamas was decapitating people. However, we have seen images and others have come forward to bear testimony that heads were detached from bodies. Now, you can connect the two. I saw some Israeli authorities standing, doing a press conference and describing a scene where they saw parents bound, facing their children who were bound, and the Israeli authorities were getting choked up trying to explain that they could not determine who was tortured first. Were the parents tortured and the children forced to watch, or were the children tortured and the parents were forced to watch their children being tortured? They couldn't determine who was being tortured first. As they were describing this scene, eyes were gouged out. I don't know if it was of the children or the parents, but this is the scene. It was barbaric. I read a news article about babies in ovens. People were set on fire. Inhumane. Animals, right? If there were, I saw the young girl who was sitting in the back of one of the trucks, and the Hamas fighters have their legs tossed across, straddled across her, the men spitting on her. She was not fully dressed. Her joints seemed to be out of place. Barbaric, evil. If there was ever a time for, especially Americans, right? And many others across the world, to be able to identify evil, October 7th was the opportunity. And yet almost immediately, like I said, Blinken, the state secretary, put out a tweet calling for Israel to stand down. And then you begin to see otherwise rational people beginning to condemn Israel, begin to throw up false moral equivalences. Well, when you say, well, this was just evil what Hamas did, they will retort with, well, what would you do if your land was stripped away from you? And you're looking at them like, how does an intelligent, rational person, i.e. me, respond to that level of craziness? What has happened? And now we see what looks like hundreds of thousands of protesters in Washington, D.C. We see campus after campus holding protests. We see Jewish kids being locked into, I think, libraries on one particular campus as pro-Palestinian students. Their fellow classmates are trying to get to them in anger. Why can we not see what is going on right in front of us and be able to call this evil? And then you have, again, people say, well, Hamas does not represent the Palestinians. So my question is, well, what is the difference? Is there a difference between Hamas and the majority of the Palestinians? Of course, we generalize for a reason. I don't know every single Palestinian over in Gaza Strip, but is there something we can look at that can help us build our foundation of knowledge so that as we stand, we're not standing on sinking ground. We're not standing on a sliding foundation, but to the best of our ability, we want to build a foundation of knowledge from which we're going to make decisions from. We want to build a foundation of knowledge that is sturdy, that is sound, that is reasonable, right? So answering the question, what is the difference between Hamas and the Palestinian people? Let's take a look. Is there a difference? One thing we can look at, for example, we can look at the current president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. I may be mispronouncing his name, please forgive me. But he is the Palestinian Authority president. We're just going to call him Abbas. And as of today, when I went to look, he has not yet condemned the barbaric attacks of Hamas. You see a lot of shucking and jiving. You see a lot of fancy footwork. When asked the question, do you condemn it? There's a lot of twists and turns, but no condemnation. I think that can give us some insight. But then let's go further, because almost about 1 month before October 7th attack by Hamas, there was a survey that was done among the Palestinian people. According to the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research, PSR, 58% of Palestinians said in that survey about a month before the October 7th event or attack, 58% of Palestinians said they would vote for the leader of Hamas, Ishmael, if elections were held that day. That's 58%. 51% and higher is the majority, right? If you're looking at two people. So 58% of Palestinians said in that survey that they would vote for the leader of Hamas, Ishmael, if elections were held that day. 78% of Palestinians want Abbas, the current Palestinian Authority president, to resign. Here's something you don't hear a whole lot about. There has been no election since 2005 when Abbas, the current president of the Palestinian Authority, won. Why is that? So since 2005, they have not had another election. Then Abbas canceled the 2016 election because they had enough information that they knew if elections were held in 2016, that Hamas was going to win and not their version, or not their set, I guess you call it, SECT, the Fatah. They were not going to win, but Hamas was going to win. And Fatah knew enough to make sure Hamas does not get their hand on power of the Palestinian Authority, because right after the 2005 elections, Fatah won a majority of seats in their version of a Congress, and they went on a killing spree, killing up everybody, right? And so 2005, there's not been another election. 2016, the current Palestinian Authority president, Abbas, canceled those elections because there was enough information that they knew if elections were held that Hamas leaders would win. He said, this is the current president of the Palestinian Authority. He said, Hamas is an integral part of the Palestinian people. These are not my words. These are his words. Do not try to cancel me. I am not Islamic phobic. I only care about what's true. How can we get to the truth? As best as we can. No one has perfect truth. I believe there is such a thing as perfect truth, but no one has perfect truth. I believe it's our responsibility to seek out truth as much as we possibly can, and on whatever morsel of truth we think we find, to stand on that until we get better knowledge. And then when better knowledge comes, when better information is presented, now we move to that. We put our stake down there, right? And our culture, unfortunately, unless you agree lockstep and do as you're told, somehow you're labeled. I don't care. I reject it. I am so over it. If you know me, I am so over other people trying to tell me what I can and cannot say, what is right, what is not right. I mean, it is utterly ridiculous. And I believe it's one of the nails in the coffin of this amazing country we have all benefited from. So that's the who. We talked about that. Who is this battle between? We just talked about the what. What is this battle over? And what is the difference between Palestinian people and Hamas? Is what Hamas doing reflective of the will of the people? Now, I'm generalizing. I don't know every Palestinian, but I think we've all seen images of and videos of Palestinian people celebrating what Hamas did on October 7th. These are the facts. Let's move on to the why. Why has this become a rallying cry a global rallying cry. I mean, we are watching hundreds of thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters just siege capitals. It's been, again, I would say it's alarming, but I've lived through Black Lives Matter and Antifa, and I saw some things I would have never expected to see in our country. So I'm not surprised, but you have to ask yourself, why has this become such a lightning rod? The equivalence of George Floyd, the equivalence of Antifa and defund the police, the equivalence of, the virtue signaling we saw around wear a mask, not wear a mask, stay hunkered and burrowed in your home or go outside, right? It's like that same kind of energy and hard lines that are being made, very aggressive, very violent, very loud. There's no room for conversation. We saw it in 2020. We saw it in 2021. We saw it in 2022. Like, for example, we saw it in 2020 with the George Floyd riots. You weren't allowed to ask questions on if rioting and looting was appropriate in response to George Floyd's death. You could not ask questions. You just had to agree. And if you were a business and you wanted to stay in business, you were forced to put up a little black square across all of your social media to show that you were standing in solidarity. That was their line, right? Everyone had to say the exact same thing. We stand in solidarity with, right? And so that was in 2020. Then in 2021, we saw COVID being ramped up. Now people being forced to take the vaccines, being forced to wear the mask. If you don't, then you're going to kill granny. You're evil. There was a lot of virtue signaling. Then they went to the vaccine, the COVID passport. Had nothing to do with, and if you said to them, well, this is exactly what Hitler did with putting insignias on people, marking people that they had to show a passport in order to be able to enjoy life, or else they were if you made any kind of equivalence in what the communist left was doing with COVID compared to what Hitler did in Germany, then all of a sudden you were evil. You wanted to kill grandma. You were the worst type of person there was, right? People were getting fired, all of that. So that's 2020, George Floyd, 2021, COVID vaccine, 2022 roll around, and now we have the Ukraine war. And if you were not aligned or in agreement with sending billions upon billions upon billions of our dollars in light of the growing inflation, then somehow you were a Putin sympathizer. It couldn't be that you just disagreed and you wanted to have a conversation and you wanted to find out, well, why are we going to war? Why are we willing to protect Ukraine's border, but we don't want to protect our own border? Why is it okay for America's border to be wide open and anybody can walk through, but it's not okay if Ukraine's border is left defenseless? You weren't allowed to ask that question, because if you did ask that question, somehow you were now a Putin sympathizer. You were the problem. Remember that? And now we have 2023. It's Hamas. It's like every year, right? So when you begin to ask the question, why has this become a global rallying cry? I don't know. You guys tell me how you feel, but this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking people have lost their identity. They have no idea who they are. They are looking for a purpose. They are looking for that shot in the arm that says, I'm relevant. My life has meaning, right? Because again, to most of these people, there is no God. They evolved from an amoeba in some kind of slime infested pool somewhere, that everything is by luck. There is no beginning. There is no real end. It's just nothingness after all of this, right? And so I believe a lot of these people are looking for purpose. They're looking for something that says, I am here. I matter. I existed. I don't think they're going to be the next Jeff Bezos. They're not going to be the next Elon Musk. They're not going to create the next iPhone compatible version, but they want to be relevant. I think we all do. I think we all are looking for, I woke up this morning, not only thinking about at 3:30 this morning, not only thinking about Israel, but also thinking about my own purpose. Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? I want to understand it as best as I can so that I can get about the business of doing it. I believe I'm on the path. I don't believe I have obtained it, but I believe I'm on the path of what has been the open door of opportunity that's been placed in front of me. And so I get to walk through that door and I get to contribute to the world around us, around me. And now we have Hamas. And I believe these people are looking for purpose. I believe they're looking for something that allows them to say, I am here. And that is what happens when you strip the norms, when you strip tradition, when you strip God from society, when you strip family from society, when you strip patriotism, the U.S. flag, and you replace it with whatever the latest trendy flag thing is, right? And it's just your home is being built on sinking sand. And that breaks my heart a little bit, but yet at the same time, I think these people need to be dealt with. I don't think we should just roll our eyes and ignore it and pretend it's not happening and just go our merry way. No, I think we need to stand, and I think we need to speak truth to the best of our ability. You may not agree with me, but let's have a dialogue. Let's talk about it, right? Bring your ideas to the table. I bring my ideas, and we'll hash it out vehemently at times, with great enthusiasm. Vigorously was the word I was looking for. We will hash it out vigorously in words, right? Words are not violence. I know there's a lot of people who say words are violence. No, words are not violence. Violence is violence, not words, right? And I believe that it is our responsibility to seek truth out to the best of our ability, knowing we don't have perfect truth, but to the best of our ability, seek it out. And then once we seek it out, whatever we think that is, to begin to talk about it, to allow other people to challenge those ideas. That's what I'm doing here. I am putting it out for you to challenge. Let's talk about it. On this podcast, wherever you may find it, subscribe, like it, share your comments about it. I'm reading them. And let's dialogue about it. What is wrong? Don't come giving me all of your uninformed emotions, right? Well, I feel. No. If you disagree with me, tell me why you disagree with me without using feel words. And let's just have a conversation about this thing, because we can no longer just roll our eyes. Remember when all of our millennials were in college and we were, Donald Trump wins in 2016 and all of the colleges started they closed down school the day after Donald Trump won. They brought in puppies and pizza and they started holding therapy sessions. And we on the right laughed at them. We called them snowflakes, right? We did gotcha videos and memes, and we just moved on about our day, right? Well, guess what? Those millennials grew up And now they're teaching your children. So those millennials, those small, and we thought they were going to always stay in college, I guess. I guess we never really connected the dots that these children are going to grow up and become the next leaders. Well, now we have Gen Z, right? They're watching. Let's do better. Let's learn from the mistakes. Let's learn from our mistakes and let's do better. Here's the last W. We talked about the who. We talked about the what. We talked about the why. Where do we go from here? I have no idea. I'm just being honest. When you look at people like Nikki Haley, she says, she's running for president, and she says things like, an attack on Israel is an attack on America. No, not really. And I am very pro-Israel. The truth I've been able to ascertain tells me that a firm foundation is one that is built on the fact that there is no moral equivalence between what Hamas did on October 7th and Israel. There's no equivalence there. We're looking at bills to send more money to Israel. This seems very unnerving. So that is what I see. But at the exact same time, I would be remiss if I did not say I am a Christian and I believe the Bible to be true. I believe every word of the Bible. I believe God is real. I believe his promises that he has made to Israel, they have all come to pass. 1948 was the last promise that was, or the last prophecy that was promised to Israel. It came to pass. Who would have ever thought that, right? But it did. And the word is very clear that Israel is forever. So it will not be annihilated from the river to the sea. How did that translate to you and I here in America? That gives me pause because I love this country. I have a family. My daughter is also paying attention, and she's like, Mommy, I want to live long enough to get married and have a family of my own, right? I want to be able to travel. My daughter says, I want to, she wants to be a veterinarian. She has her own dreams, and I have no idea what is coming down the pike. But like you, I too feel that a shoe is about to drop. I don't know for good, for bad, or for what. I just feel like this kind of sleepwalk that we've been doing over the past many years, that someone is about to hit the alarm clock. I believe our best weapon, going back to Frederick Douglass, is knowledge. Knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave. And it allows us to look around for opportunities that may be there for our individual families, for our country. Why am I still here? And I believe we are here to do more than just convert oxygen into carbon dioxide. I believe we are here for a purpose. So number one, just start reading, paying attention, finding good people to listen to. Number two, begin to be very thoughtful about your purpose. Why are you here? And I can assure you, you are here not to do epic takedowns of other people on Twitter. You are not here to be mean and vile and ugly. You're here for something bigger. Figure that out. And whatever comes, commit to loving people. I remember my uncle telling me once, it doesn't cost me anything to be kind. So be kind. And like, subscribe, and share the Kathy Barnette Show. Thank you.